theyeshiva.net.
Seitzei, page Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, or page 75. 11 lines from the bottom. Talking about mindfulness, right? The ability to think. When a person immerses, yamik is from the word oimek, depth. When a person goes deep in his mind into this meditation, or v'kayotze, similar meditations, memela, the result of this is that yispardu kol po'alei oven b'chinas harasha b'nafsha. Yispardu kol po'alei is a pasuk in Tehillim. Kol po'alei oven, those who represents the negativity, the toxicity.
Workers of iniquity.
Iniquity.
Workers of iniquity.
Workers of iniquity, right? Po'alei oven. They scatter, they separate. Yispardu kol po'alei oven. Workers of iniquity scatter. Nothing like good old English, right? B'chinas harasha b'nafshay. We're talking in the ra, the fragmentation, the fragmentation in a person's soul. Because as we said, ra doesn't necessarily mean evil. It could mean also evil, as bad, negativity. But ra begins with the pasuk in Koheles, ru'us, ruach. I saw everything under the sun. Shlomo Melech says, hakol hevel u'ru'us ruach. It's all vanity. Uru'us ruach, it's broken spirited, meaning it's fragmented, it's not cohesive. So the person challenges and eliminates the ra, the brokenness in his soul, because harav sitra achera ein lehem chiyus klal mitzad atzma. All negativity and all sitra achera means the other side, which is the euphemism for the other side that's not kedusha. They don't have chayus klal mitzad atzma. They don't have chiyus, vitality on their own. Zulus shemekablim chayusa me'acharayim de kedusha. Their chiyus comes from what they receive through kedusha, and they receive it through the acharayim, which means, so to speak, through the hind part of kedusha. Not graciously, not this. I give you something, looking at you, and then something I throw over my back. That's called b'chinas acharayim. There's an expression in Chazal Commander Shadi Basar Kasvai. You throw it over your shoulder because you don't want to look at him. So Achirayim de Kedusha means it comes from, so to speak, the back of Kedusha. Al Yidei Shasal Loises, when the person violates or transgresses one of the 365 Loises, so what it creates is it creates a leak. It creates a leak. It enables part of his energy to go to places and feed the sharks, feed the crocodiles, so to speak. Therefore, so therefore, Sitra Achara has an essential subservience, a bittul, in the presence of Kedusha, just like darkness has in the presence of light. There's never a battle between darkness and light. The battle is before you put on the light. Once you put on the light, it's not like the light is battling the darkness. The darkness immediately gets dispelled in the presence of light. Oir is doiche choshech. So you have a pitch dark room. It's middle of the night. It's pitch dark. And you light a match. Or you light a candle. Or today you'll put on the light. So what happens? It's not like the choshech says, no, I'm not leaving. Who are you? Who are you? Why should I leave? You should leave from me. That doesn't happen. I'm talking Pashtan Gashmis. That's the mashal he's giving. Why not? The reason is because when the oir gets ignited, the choshech is immediately dispelled, automatically, memela, there's no battle. What's the Havana? The Havana is, the definition of darkness is the absence of light. Understand this. It's not that darkness has its own entity or identity. There is a machlokes or a shonim about this, what the definition of choshech is by the philosophers among the Jews. But here he's noiket. Here he's following the idea that darkness, the definition of darkness is absence of light. So if that's the definition of darkness, it doesn't have any other definition but the fact that there's no light. So therefore, when there is light, the darkness is immediately dispelled. If darkness was an entity, a self-contained entity that was opposite to light, so now the two battle each other, they wrestle each other. The question is, who's going to win, the darkness or the light? But if the whole definition of darkness is that there's no light, that's what darkness is. It's a void. Essentially, it's feeding off a void. The moment there's light, automatically there's no darkness. It's not like you're battling. There's nothing to battle. All you're battling is when there was no light, when the whole Metzius was because there was no light. So as long as there's no light, that's where darkness gets its existence from. The moment the light comes in, it's gone. This is the metaphor he's using also for the human soul. A person has a lot of darkness in him. But the real, huh?
It's both the nefesh elokis and the nefesh habahamis.
Well, the nefesh elokis is not choshech.
It can't have choshech.
No. It's elokus, it's kedusha. Kedusha here is a metaphor for oir, and ra is a metaphor for choshech.
So it's not fragmented, that
Right,
nefesh at all.
right, right. So what happens? What happens is when there's a void, when there's a lack of light, so that's when the choshech exists very powerfully. And it could be very, very powerful. But what is its power? It's not that it has really an independent metzius. Just like choshech, in the presence of oir, it's automatically gone. Because what do you want should be here? All that was here was the absence of light. There's no absence of light, it's gone. The same is true sitra acher in the presence of kedusha. It has no chance to win. Why does it have no chance to win? Because it doesn't really have independent power. It's not an independent force. All the identity, all the chayas it has is from kedusha. Because all the chayas that it has is from kedusha, so therefore whenever there's a real competition between kedusha and not kedusha, kedusha is going to win, just like oir will always prevail over the choshech. And the reason oir will prevail over the choshech is because the choshech has no hope legabe the oir, because its whole metzius was just absence of oir. And that's why he's saying that the whole metzius of Sitra Achera only comes because there's a chayas of kedusha. It's a chayas that it gets from kedusha. It doesn't have its own identity. Elamai, it appears to be very, very powerful, but really its entire existence is only a distorted form of holiness. That's what it is. It's holiness being used, being leaked, being distorted, being manipulated. But it's always a chayas from kedusha because there's no other source of life and vitality outside of it. So that's why in the presence of real kedusha, Sitra Achera will not have real substance. Why? Because it doesn't have substance outside of kedusha. Its whole substance is coming from kedusha. So therefore, it doesn't have a chance to prevail over kedusha essentially. And the reason is because even though apparently it gives off an illusion of grandeur and power, but really, with a genuine light, it melts.
So, is the darkness real? Like the boogeyman, or is it has a power?
That's his point. The boogeyman seems very, very real. We know that, and it can wreak havoc too, right? Because havoc is not created only from real things. Havoc is created from things that appear real. They can wreak the same havoc. The fact that it appears real. How often are people stopped by fear? How real is that fear? People are afraid to talk to somebody about something. How real is it? When they challenge the fear and they talk to him about it, they say it wasn't even a big deal. Hey, that was easy. But sometimes you build up a fear in your mind for 5 years, and it becomes real. What makes it real? Your thought of it being real makes it real. What makes darkness real? Your decision that it's real, that makes it real. The moment you realize, for real, pun intended, that it's not real, then it's not real anymore. Because it's not real. What makes it real is that you're giving it validity, you're giving it significance, you're giving it power. That is what makes it. I'm not sure that Roosevelt saw this Maamer when he said there's nothing to fear but fear itself. But that's really the concept. In other words, the most paralyzing element about fear is the fear. That is what you have to fear.
Is there a connection between darkness and evil?
Yes, that's the clear connection here. The Ra and the Choshech are synonymous. Now, we all know that evil is quite real. And it wreaked havoc in society and civilization for what, 5,776 years? From the day of creation, one brother killed his other brother. So when he says here that Choshech doesn't have a metzius because it gets its chiyus from Sitra Achera, this doesn't mean that people don't take it seriously. It doesn't mean it doesn't have power. Stalin had a lot of power. And ISIS, unfortunately, is yielding some power too. Imach Shemam. But what's the vart? The vart is, essentially there's no real substance. The person may give a tremendous substance and become completely swallowed up by it. Just like the darkness may completely dominate my life. And the fear may completely overwhelm me. So is the boogeyman real? You have to answer the question. If you say it's real, it's very real. If you realize it's not real, it's feeding off the absence of light, bring in light and it'll be gone. Just like a person comes into the room and says, there's no way I can deal with this room. It's dark, 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 dark. They're right.
I don't think the word's real. I think it's power over you.
Okay, better. Does it have power over you? How much substantial power does it have?
In the Nefesh sequence,
How does it happen?
So that's what he's saying with the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamas. When a person really introduces God to the animal soul, the Nefesh Bahamas is there. It's present. It's just like introducing light into a dark room. There's no real battle here. Now, you have to understand what this means. If a person is in the middle of a tremendous impulsive taiva episode, very good. So they may not completely be in this position because they're not functioning. They're not functional. Person is in the middle of an episode, right?
Consumed with it.
They're completely consumed. He's talking about you need mindfulness for this. That's why he's focusing on davening here. Once I'm already in the midst of the episode, now hopefully you got to do whatever you got to do just to stop, to control yourself if you could, or you need somebody else's help. But the point here is, in other words, the darkness consumes you to a point that it becomes so realistic. Like people have, sometimes very deep mental challenges where fiction becomes more real than reality. So you're going to start telling him, oh, it's fiction, it's not real. And the fact that you think it's real, that's as real as it gets in terms of its impact on you. I can decide you're in the room. You're dealing with, extreme cases. You talk about schizophrenia, you talk about bipolar disorder. You have situations where, a person's, sadly, but their chemical makeup is in a sense that fiction is reality. So you're going to come and tell them, oh, this is fiction, this is reality. You have to understand the matzah you're dealing with.
But he's building this on when you're mamic with this is bonus, what I just said to you, the bekol makom shato motzei gloso shamata motzei v'noso.
V'kayotze ba. I think there's a few nekudas. One nekuda is he started off with atam chayes kula, that everything's chayes is from him. So therefore, Sitra Achara can't have real competing substance because their very ability to oppose also comes from him. So how much are they really opposing him? You understand? If your very life force that's allowing you to oppose me is also coming from me, so your opposition is also part of me. So I can't take you that seriously because you're not a real contrasting force, because the contrast itself is like a setup, it's coming from me. So when a person could truly realize that, so then it's like choshech in the presence of Or. The only reason is that it doesn't speak its truth, that its whole etzias is really just a form of kedusha being manipulated and distorted. So therefore it's not a real opposition. It's not a real contrast because all it is, its whole identity is also from kedusha. Even its ability to oppose kedusha comes from kedusha. So therefore it's another form of kedusha. So it doesn't have a real substance that's fighting with kedusha. That's the first vart. And then there's the next vart, that there's nothing that can really that there's nothing that can really become a hefsek, it adds that there's nothing that could be a hefsek and a partition. And then there's what you said. What did you say? That the tzimtzum itself, what?
Which would be
I think that's a third point, and that is that that creation was an act of anova. And what is anova? Anova, as we spoke, is self-suspension, the ability to create space, the ability to create a void. So that's the plot of creation. If that's the plot of creation, it means the definition of existence, even on the highest level, is confronting a void, always. That's the definition of life. The definition of life is to face empty space, to face a vacuum, which some would call an existential vacuum. In other words, if you go back to the origin of life, you're facing what seems like a black hole. And that could get very, very scary. On the other hand, when you realize that that is essential to the plot of creation, even in the highest, most sublime level, there was a tzimtzum. In other words, the infinity withdrew itself and created an empty space where creation can exist. That's the idea of tzimtzum that the Arizal postulates. So that means that even the greatest tzaddik, the most spiritual soul, even the highest malachim and neshamas in the highest worlds, they're all post-tzimtzum realities. So therefore, on any level where a person exists, the definition of life is confronting darkness, confronting emptiness, confronting a void, facing it, and looking at the void and saying, I'm going to transform this void into light, because I know that this void itself contains within itself the presence or the meaning and purpose. It's God's plan in creation. Because without this void, actually, there would be no I. So life, even in its most sublime interpretation, is always confronting a struggle. What struggle? That there's an essential void. Now, the value of this idea is everyone is facing a void. The question is what your void is. But everybody faces a void. All bad habits and addictions are fueled by void. All dysfunctional behavior are fueled by void. We have a void that we have to fill. If I wouldn't have a void that I have to fill, I wouldn't do. A lot of things we do is in order to fill a void. Are we conscious of it or not is a separate question, but you could be pretty conscious of it. And the void is on so many different levels, financial, psychological, emotional, mental, spiritual, sociological, whatever, familial issues. But there's a void. The ability here, what we're saying is that as you trace back life and you climb the ladder, so to speak, up to the highest states of consciousness, you will also have to confront a void. You will have to confront the ultimate void. And the ultimate void is, what we call Gedula, is really Anvasnusai. And then when the soul faces that emptiness, that empty space, it's very, very scary. It's very, very powerfully scary. Nonetheless, the truth is that the void is not a void in and of itself. What is it? It's like chayshach. The lack of oir is what creates the chayshach. In other words, it's not that it has essential, independent power. It's waiting. It's inviting you to bring in light. To bring in light.
So these people try to transcend themselves and try, do the Buddhist way. It seems like they're making the void more. They're falling into the void.
Okay. Okay.
Which means they're going opposite the purpose of life.
Yeah.
Why are they so unequal? Why is the symptoms seem to be so equal so unequal between people? Like somebody has a much deeper void than others. If the whole creation was...
Doesn't have to do with the soul.
That's a wonderful question. Why for some people is the void so much more acute than others? You want to know why there's happy-go-luckies? And then there's others who experience the void. I think it really has to do a lot with your shayrish hanashama, with the source of your soul, because usually people who suffer from voids, deeper voids, are far more spiritually sensitive. Which is why the expression kala gavoya b'yoser yared lamata b'yoser. I mean, from my experience over the years, I could tell you, whenever I met people who suffered from terrible, terrible addictions, and I've met quite a few, usually it comes with a very profound spiritual sense. That is unique. It's unique. It's more exaggerated than in other people. And I realized over the years that it's haba hatalia, because if you have a deep spiritual sense, to satiate it, you need much more than other people. You can't just get away with Sunday afternoon barbecue. It's good. Sunday afternoon barbecue is good, but it's not going to do the trick for you. It's not going to do the trick. And you need much, much more. You need to satiate a lot of a deeper sense. And when you're not satiating it, you become much more frustrated, much more annoyed, much more depressed, much more sad. So they have,
High in the shoes than the regular guy.
in a way, yeah. In other words, to put it simply, they're more sensitive to the original tzimtzum. The more you're sensitive to the original tzimtzum,
No problems.
the harder life could get, because you're not just oblivious. And the min hameitza karasa yutke, anani b'merchav yutke. And I would say generally Jews have this in a very, very acute way. There is a streak of a deep void in the Jewish people. There's no question.
He said Jacobson on this guy who's an atheist because he's afraid.
Al derech. I think I once gave a metaphor. Imagine if Mozart would have grown up in a home without a piano. What would have happened? Thank God he didn't. He grew up in a home with a piano. It was wonderful for humanity. But let's say he grew up in a home without a piano. The genius wouldn't go away. But what would be the outlet? There would be no piano. He had a piano. They say that somebody once came to him and said, he wants his child to become a musician, a pianist. At what age should he start teaching him? So he said, I don't know, maybe 8, 9. He says, they say that you started at 2 or 3. He says, yeah, but I didn't ask. Your asking is already... I didn't ask, that's the point. It was for my soul, it was organic. So let's say there wouldn't be a piano. The genius would be there, but the outlet wouldn't be there. So it would have to go somewhere. Genius expresses itself. What would be the outlet? It's a revolutionary power. So when you have an outlet that could harness and contain such talent, it enriches humanity. What if you don't have such an outlet? It's going to go somewhere. It's going to leak somewhere. It's going to come out. A dam, you put up a dam, there's a waterfall. You go to the Niagara Falls, right? You could put up a dam, you're going to stop the water, but at some point it's going to break through. The question is where it's going to go and how it's going to be effective. In many ways, I would say in a general way, on a deeper spiritual level, that Jews without Torah, and I'm speaking about Torah in the true ultimate calling of Torah, including the spiritual universal mission statement of Torah, not just Torah in a few dikdukei halacha. A Jew without Torah is Mozart without a piano, which is why you will see that in most revolutionary movements over the last century or two that we know about, you'll see a disproportionate amount of Jews involved in it. Very unique. Even today in America, 30% of Buddhists in America are Jewish. 30%. We're not 2%, we're maybe 2% of America. 70% of leaders of new age groups. 70%, 50% of members. These are crazy numbers. Most revolutions, any revolution you'll see Jews in the 1960s, literally leaders, and really we're not even 1/4 of humanity, so the disproportionateness is staggering. What is it? It's that every Jew feels deep down something that his job is to change the world. Every Jew is has what's called a Mashiach complex, a Messiah complex. Every Jewish mother, by osmosis, tells her child, either be Messiah or bring Messiah. In other words, there's no mediocrity. There is a very deep sense that the status quo is not good. Just give me a canoe and put me at a lake in Long Island for 60 years, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, with some lettuce and kale. There's some transcendental yearning and aspiration that comes from a sensitivity to the fact that there's a very essential void behind existence. So there's a need or a yearning to overthrow the status quo, to transform the world, to change the world. It comes from a very deep spirituality. Very, very deep spirituality. But to satiate that, you need a big piano. You need a piano. Essentially, there's something called a 12-step program for recovery. But Jews have a 613-step program for recovery. Why? Because our addictions are far more serious. So God knew that to keep Jews normal, you got to give them 613 steps program for recovery. Because when you're dealing with insanity, you can't make a regular schedule. Insanity requires insane schedules. You ever think about shaking lulavim on Sukkot and blowing ram's horns on Rosh Hashanah and wrapping black straps and taking your daily blood pressure? What is this all? If you read Shulchan Aruch and you don't understand the spiritual background, it's very strange. It's very archaic. Those who grew up religious are used to it, but anybody from the outside, you hear it, you see it, you read it. It's like, especially the Dikdukim, the Bamed Varim Amurims in Shulchan Aruch. It's like, first of all, relax. relax. And what? You're dealing with schita on Shabbos, wringing out what, it's like, it becomes a little strange. It's very hard to be sophisticated in a profound way and really internalize this. I'm not talking about indoctrination, that always works for some people. But to really get it, what always took me about the Balatanya was that the same seriousness with which he writes about these stuff, he writes his Shulchan Aruch, his Kuntres Acherins, that are brilliant pilpulim and dikdukim of halacha, Pshat Nataz and Magen Avram and a Rajba and a Tosfos. And I always try to understand, how did he synthesize, like what did he see? So the truth is that it's very, without understanding the core of Yiddishkeit and its real universal power, it's very hard to combine the two. Some are, by definition, they love halacha because it gives structure to their life. They love structure, and they don't like transcendence. And some people are drawn to transcendence and mysticism, and they're allergic to halacha. You have sometimes you make a chavrusa with somebody halacha, and they go crazy. They just, they rather kill themselves. And other people, fakert, you start talking about ruchnis, like, just leave me alone. Tell me what to do. They just want to be told what to do. And it's not an easy synthesis. It's two different types of souls. Really, it's two different types of souls. You even see sometimes, people who become Balei Tshuva, like where they gravitate to. Some love communities where you're told what to do. It's a security, especially if you're OCD, it's very good. Because halach is wonderful. It's man Krishma, it's man Tefillah, you're in, you're out, nobody stays an extra minute in shul, especially those shuls you don't stay an extra minute. The sermon is 6.5 minutes. So it's really, it works. On the other hand, other people, are spontaneous bohemian artists, and they can't contain themselves in anything, and they love this transcendent, they want to be high. But both are grabbing onto part of the truth, not the whole truth. So the truth is that Mozart without a piano would have been a disaster, because you have to be able to have that piano as an outlet. So really, halacha is a very spiritual structure, very spiritual. But to understand the spiritual structure of halacha, you have to understand the world in a very, very broad way. When you understand the world in a very broad way, including the spirituality of the universe, then you really see that every diktuk halacha is really facilitating another streak of the soul. It's really an outlet for a very deep yearning that the soul has, whether it's the lulav on Yom Tov, the Sheikh Rabbi Yashaber Soloveitchik has a sefer called Ish HaHalacha, the halachic man. He contrasts the halachic man from the mystical man. So he has a story there. He says that remember the story? His father was Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik. He was the Rav of Chaslavich. Chaslavich is a little town in Russia. The paradox was the Rav was a Soloveitchik who came from the Litvish aristocracy, the Soloveitchiks. It's the family of Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who was the Talmud Muvik of the Vilna Gaon. But most citizens of Chaslavich were Chassidim. So Reb Moshe Soloveitchik, it was an interesting experience. So Reb Yashaber said that his teacher, who was 8 years old, taught him Tanya. He taught him Tanya in class. His father got very upset. Reb Moshe got very upset. But he credited his teacher with explaining to him giving him the essence of Yiddishkeit. Very interesting stuff he said about it. But I want to tell you one thing he says. It was Rosh Hashanah. And his father was the Rav, and he was standing on the bimah. And the chassid, the Baltekeya, he says, was a chassid. And he knew very well Likkutei Torah. And Rosh Hashanah, Likkutei Torah, the Balatanya is very intense about what shofar is. Shofar is basically min hametzar. It's the narrowness, which is post-tzimtzum. And the merchav is pre-tzimtzum, the broadness. So shofar is trying to get out from the place of anava, from the small straits to the place of merchav. So he says the Baltekeya, as he takes the shofar, he starts saying the psukim, he starts crying. He starts crying on the bimah. So he says his father is a brisker, Reb Moshe Reb Chaim's oldest son. So his father says, "Was meinst du? Was meinst du? By lulav meinst du euch? When you shake the lulav, you're crying. Sa mitzvah, to the mitzvah. Rachmana amar tiku." The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, "Lama toikin amar Rebabo, lama toikin b'Rosh Hashanah." Why do we blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah with an aisle? The Gemara, "Lama toikin rachmana amar tiku," because the Torah says to blow. So the Gemara says the question is why a ram? The Torah says blow. What are you crying? The mitzvah to blow. What are you crying? By lulav you don't cry. By shofar you don't cry. He's saying here you have the contrast of two worlds. He says for him shofar was representing also, and he was saying no. God says do it. Right. So the synthesis between the two is a complex one. So the real nekuda here is that halacha is the outlet. Torah generally is the piano for a very, very deep streak of transcendence that the Jew has to face that void. It's really, if you don't feel the void, it's very hard to learn Shulchan Aruch. I always tell the Bachram, you can't learn Tosfos if you're not bothered by the question of Tosfos. You don't deserve to learn it. It's going to be a waste of time. If you didn't have the question on Rashi, then don't learn Tosfos, because if there's nothing bothering you, go further. Because it's going to drive you crazy. It's a big mistake when they teach boys Tosfos and they don't have the question of Tosfos themselves. They're driving them crazy. If you don't have the question, you don't deserve to have the answer. Not because you're bad, because it's not going to do anything for you. It's going to waste your time. If the Gemara works for you, so either you're not thinking, whatever. So go, do, cover. You can't force people to be beyond who they are. You have to let them be who they are. If you don't understand the void, you can't understand the response to the void. You understand? Judaism is a response to the void. It's answering a question. If you don't have the question, so then why are you driving me crazy? So sometimes we have the answers. Today we have the answers, but we forgot the question. People say we need answers today. We don't need answers today. We have too many. We need to remind people that there's a question. And the answer came to answer a question. So the point is that Sitra Achara to Kedusha is like darkness and light. In the presence of light, darkness dissipates without even an intense battle or struggle. And the reason is because there's no substantial opposition. All there is a void. And therefore, the only power it has is the power that we give it. And the moment a person brings in light into his life, the choshech is gone. Yeah. So that sometimes a person has to know what they're dealing with. In other words, are you dealing with real opposition, or are you just dealing with a void? Sometimes the Seitzei Parshas is that a person is empty. And when they're empty, so then when there's no light, there's darkness. So they take the darkness very seriously, and they build it, they make from it Pisim and Ramses, and they turn it into this massive, massive, powerful entity. But really doesn't have an entity. Its whole entity is because there's no light, and when you bring in light, it's gone. So that's sometimes a very important idea, that what you're missing is just emptiness. It's just that's the problem. The problem is that it's empty, and the moment the Gemara says, the Pasuk says they threw Yosef into a boir. So the Pasuk says in Vayeshev, "Haboir reik ein by mayim." So the Gemara says in Maseches Shabbos, the second parak, it says "Haboir reik." We know ein by mayim. If it's empty, there's no water. So the Gemara famously says, "Mayim ein by avol nechashim v'akravim yeshbay." There's no water. There was no water, but there was something else. It wasn't. It says it was emptied without water, because it wasn't completely empty. It was nechashim v'akravim yeshbay. So the shaila is, why does the Torah have to say v'haboy reik, right? And then you say ein by mayim. So what do you tell me? Haboy reik, the boy is empty, and then you have to say ein by mayim. There's no mayim, but nechashim v'akravim yeshbay. You could just say it's a boy with nechashim v'akravim. What do you have to make this whole negative? And then from there we have a drasha. So there's a word that's brought that's what the pasuk is trying to say. When the boir is empty without water, b'meila nechashim v'akravim yeshbay, so to speak, spiritually speaking. Sometimes the whole reason there's scorpions and snakes is only because the boir is empty. If the boir would be full, automatically there would be no nechashim v'akravim. The boir is empty, so automatically it becomes attractive for nechashim v'akravim, because wherever there's no oir, the choshech is present.
So then, is it enough just to bring or then you have to really?
Right. So that's probably totally in different situations. Sometimes there's nothing to battle. All you need oil in your life. Sometimes it assumes such a powerful entity that you need to.
Is it possible just to take fire?
Well, this was the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel that we spoke about in Ketzad Meraktin Lifnei Hakala. Beis Shammai said you got to first get rid of the choshech. And Beis Hillel said, no, just fill it up with oil and automatically the choshech will be dispelled. Right. Do you start with Surmeira only, or you could start with Asay Tov? So now he continues, however, It's not enough for a person just to be mafrid iralavat, just to separate it, to quarantine it. In other words, to be able to distinguish between taiva and ra, which is in itself a very powerful tool. To be able to know what is the taiva in you and what is the ra in you, and not to confuse one with the other. But there's even a deeper avoid, and that is to obliterate it completely. There is to be mafrid it, and mafrid itself is an important thing. That's like boirer. You separate the positive from the negative, the healthy from the unhealthy, the functional from the dysfunctional, and you know what in your system comes from where. That itself is a very meaningful endeavor. When a person could say this, could know that this is coming from a particular place in me, so I may not be able to get rid of it, but at least I could identify it. And that's a critical issue. When a person doesn't necessarily have the ability to conquer or obliterate or eliminate something, but at least they can identify it. They can identify and say, this comes from a particular issue in me, and I don't want that this issue should be the ruler of my life, the absolute ruler of my life. That in itself, that's called hafrada. The ability to make mental distinctions and say, this is coming from here and this is coming from there, that's fine. So for example, let's say a person feels rage, and they have this tremendous impulse to blow up and to scream and to holler and to denigrate, to go crazy in their home. Can they always get rid of that emotion? Not necessarily. It's there. It's a very powerful way. But what they could always do is they can identify its source. And when you can identify its source, you don't have to take it that seriously. You don't have to become a victim to it, a slave to it. For example, if somebody can identify that this emotion is coming from a certain part of themselves that is a lower part of themselves, or a more base part, a part that has a lot of, so to speak, issues and struggles, and because of those particular experiences or struggles, they are reacting in this way. So now I have to choose, do I want that aspect of myself, that wounded aspect of myself, to become the king in my life? Or I can distinguish and I could say, okay, there's something in me that's causing this, but I'm going to choose to respond from my more wholesome self, from a higher self, or in the language of this Maamer, not from my nefesh habahamis, but for my nefesh halikis. So that distinction, that hafrada itself is very powerful. That's called hafrada, identification. Right, so I make distinctions between my fragmented self, or my broken self, and my wholesome self. That's exactly the point. I may have a part of me that's broken. Say a person didn't get validation ever in their life, present company excluded. But say a person never got validation in their life, or not enough validation, and they struggle with it sometimes even when they're 40 or 50, they still struggle with it. When their child doesn't give them what they feel is validation, they can go crazy emotionally, right? Or their wife or somebody else. So when you're feeling such an intense emotion, you could act on it. But when you're acting on it, you are convinced that that is you, and you're being honest to yourself, you're being loyal to yourself. But what if you could simply identify and say, you know, this is coming from a wounded place that has certain needs, that has certain fears, that has certain insecurities, and it's going crazy because, like, oh, I didn't get validation, I don't exist. I feel like I'm dying, I don't exist.
What does it mean, validation?
What validation is?
I'm not familiar with the term in this context. Recognition. People don't recognize you, or they don't agree with you.
People don't recognize you, that's good. A guy comes to me, okay, it should be, I guess, the biggest tzara that people have. He's been in a shul for 2 years. They never gave him an aliyah. And it's driving him crazy. It's driving him crazy. What am I supposed to tell him?
Speak to the Gabbai.
Very good. You're a gabbai, aren't you?
No, but I'm familiar with this.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And validation could exist in hundreds of ways. The point is you feel you need some recognition that you're not getting. A compliment that you're not getting, a criticism that you are getting, somebody shoving you down, pushing you down verbally, denigrating, or you think it's denigrating, not recognizing you, not acknowledging you, not lifting you up. On the contrary, always saying how many mistakes you make. So sometimes people respond, touch it like it's a sore, it's like, you know, when you have a sore wound and somebody touches it, you go crazy. There's a wound here. It's not what you said. It's what I heard you say or how I perceived it, because I have a wound. So the question is, am I going to operate from my wounded self? I'm going to operate from a wholesome self. That's a choice a person always makes. So there are stuff going on. There's toiv and there's ra. Hafrada means to be able to identify where it comes from and to be able to say, okay, so you're there. But it doesn't mean that you have to be the king. To give a Parshas example, I probably gave this once. A person is driving a car. They're sitting at this steering wheel, right? They're steering. There's a backseat driver who sits in the back and says, take the red light, take the red light, take the red light. There's no cars coming. So you look at them and you say, thank God you're not driving. Thank God you're in the back seat, and thank God I'm holding onto the steering wheel. Because if you would be by the steering wheel, it would be sakanas nefashos. But now, what if the backseat driver is in your brain? It's not in the back seat, it's in the back. And it's also telling you. So what do you do then? You have to tell that voice in you, thank God you're not at the steering wheel. I'm at the steering wheel. I hear what you say, but I'm going to keep the red light. The same is true in every person's life. Who's sitting at the steering wheel? That you have to choose. Who's sitting at the steering wheel? And you have to decide, is this voice going to define the journey of your life? I'm going to react based on this, or I'm going to talk to it and say, okay, I hear you out. But I'm not going to become a victim and say that my whole self is wounded, and therefore, this is the only way to respond. I'm going to imagine that there's a part of me that is actually very wholesome, is doing very well, because there's always a part of you that's wholesome and doing very well. A chelik elekami mal could never be broken. Just like Hashem can't be broken, a chelik elekami mal can't be broken. Baal Shem Tov says, Reb Sadia Gaon says, ha'etzem kshat ha'toifes b'miktzos yat ha'toifes b'kula. Anything of essence, if you have a little bit of it, you have all of it. So a chelik elekami mal can't be broken, it can't be tarnished, even if it didn't get what it needed, because it's essentially wholesome. So if it's essentially wholesome, so therefore, imagine that that is me. That is me. That's how I'm going to respond from that place. Think, if you were completely wholesome, and you were completely comfortable with yourself, and you were completely in sync with your own essence and your own source, would you also respond from this way? You would probably feel much stronger. You wouldn't feel so wounded. You wouldn't feel so weak. So maybe the person said what they should have not said, or they should have said, or you misunderstood it, or didn't misunderstand them. It's almost irrelevant. But how I respond, I have to choose. That's called hafrada. Identify the toiv from the ra and decide which one is going to be the chief director, who is going to hold on to the steering wheel and steer the car. But then there's something even deeper. Tzarich levatla mekol v'kol. There's not hafrada but bittul, not separation but elimination. K'moshe kosav hachrim tachrimeh. The Lashon HaPasuk is hachrim tachrim, destroy them. And then there's even deeper, transforming darkness into light. Zel why they krishma. This is the real function of krishma and davening. It says by Pinchas that he took the spear in his hand, the end of Parshas Balak, and he went to Zimri and Cosby, and he stopped the Magefa. So it's brought in Svarim that shit teven the Yechudesh or Pasuk Shema Yisrael. In Klolos Ramach teven the Kriya Shema hem nekroyim roimach. In Kriya Shema you have 248 words. So that's Reish Mem Ches. In Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad you have 6 words. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So together it's Reish Vav Mem Ches. 248 Ramach plus another 6, 254. That is roimach. So in other words, Kriya Shema from Shema Yisrael through the entire Krishma, which is 248 words in Krishma, and the 6 words of the Yichud of Shema Yisrael together, it makes up roimach. V'ayim b'sefer ma'orei ois reish s'if tesvav. This is a famous sefer from Kabbalah. It's an encyclopedia of Kabbalah by Reb Meir Papirash. It's called Ma'orei Oir, from the earlier Kabbalah. V'hainu k'moy shadei haroimach. What's the connection between Kriya Shema and roimach? That's even the reason why we repeat Hashem Elokeichem, right? Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Why does the Chazan repeat? Chazan says, Seitzei Yasem Hashem Lislechem Elokim Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and then he repeats again 3 words Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. Or if you're davening b'yechidus, many people repeat it on their own. If you're not with a minyan, the reason is to be mashlim the Ramach Tevis. Why is it so important to have Ramach? To make roimach, a spear. Why is it so important to have a spear? The answer is because the spear's function is to remove completely the life of the person, of the enemy. That's what The real concept of the Kriya Shema is to serve as a roimach, as a spear, to be mevatel and to be machrim, to destroy the ra in you, not just be it mafrid, but be it mevatel. A shpiz. A roimach is a shpiz. And in fact, the word hachreim, right, also has in it the letters of roimach. Roimach, cherem, which is all the concept of hachreim, tachrimem, it's all to completely remove the life from it. It's not just separate it, but remove the life from it. Bir hadavar, the explanation of this, tzarech lahavin inyan shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad. For this we have to understand a little more the meaning of the pasuk itself that we say in Kriya Shema from Ve'eschana. Here Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem echad. Pirush achar shenivru elamim shayach loymar loshen echad. The word echad, Hashem echad, you can only say post creation. Why? Shepirushay, the Beis Yosef brings that echad is aleph ches dalet. So the Rishonim explained, the Poskim explained, aleph ches dalet is echad, he's one, the ches in 8 and dalet in 4. Aleph is 1, ches is 8, dalet 4. So the Beis Yosef is from the Beis Yosef in Erechayim. The Zayin Rikiyim ve'eretz, he's one. The Gemara says, am lichtei l'maylo l'mato l'dalet ruchas ha'olam. But echad, you make him a king up and down and all the 4 sides of the world. So therefore, ches is the 7 heavens in the earth, and dalet is dalet ruchas ha'olam, the 4 sides. So echad is achdus, but where? In the 7 heavens and earth, that's ches, and dalet is all the 4 sides. V'chein l'mayla. So if there's no heaven, and there's no earth, and there's no mizrach, there's no east, west, south, north, you can't say echad. The word echad only applies to creation. Once there's existence, you could say he's one in existence. V'chein l'mayla, even if you speak on a higher level spiritually, la'achar shenetz l'midas alyonis, once Hashem emanated from himself, he identified his midah is shayach loymar loshen echad. Then you could say the word echad. Why? Because you have echad b'ches, you have zayin midas, you have the 7 midas, hagdula, gvura, tiferes, netzach, hoy, that we mentioned in Vayevarech David from Divrei Hayamim. Basically, the 7 midas from Chesed through Malchus. L'cha Hashem hagdula, hagvura, tiferes, hanetzach, hoy, tichel b'shmam v'arz, l'cha Hashem hamamlocha, which is Malchus. And then you have a dalet chayis pnei arya. You have in the Merkava the vision of Yecheskel, which we say in the Haftarah of Shavuos. So he speaks about 4 angelic beings, 4 chayas hakodesh, the face of the lion, the face of the eagle, the face of the ox, and the face of man. Udmus pneihem, v'iyu miyachid lahoin shekulum telem elav yizbarach, and he unites them all because all of them are subservient to him. So that's the echad, whether it's on a physical level. Aleph is 1, and ches is the heavens and the earth, and dalet are the 4 sides, or on a spiritual level, that it refers to the 7 midos. And the Daled Chayas of the Merkava, this is all post-creation. When you're speaking about his essence, pre-creation or transcendent of creation, pre-creation doesn't only mean in time, it means even today. When you're speaking about in a space that transcends creation, the word echad doesn't apply. She'enei begeder almen klal, because he's not in the realm of worlds. Echad means there's the reality of the universe from our perspective, and he is one. He pervades it. He is its master. He is its creator. He orchestrates it. He is the engine of it all. So it's all a relationship already with the universe. It's a description of Hashem in terms of the world. Echad is already a description of the world. But Lagabe Mohusevat Musay, his essence, he's Einoi Begeder Alman, he's completely transcendent of the reality of the world. So Kamavur B'Sefer Yitzirah. It's explained this in Sefer Yitzirah, one of the earliest Svarim of Kabbalah. There's an expression there, Lifnei Echad Ma'ata Sefer. Before Echad, what are you going to count? Meaning, Shemohusevat Musay Naila Maila Revavis Adin Kates Bebchina Sipur. His essence infinitely transcends a story. Lifnei Echad Ma'ata Sefer. When you reach beyond Echad, what are you going to count? Or what are you going to tell? It's beyond a story. A story is something that you can tell, you can describe, you can feature. V'zeu b'chinas Havaya Rishoina. That's the first Havaya in Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael. Hashem Yudkei Vavkei. Hashem Elokeinu Daika. Shafilu Hamalachim Einam Asigim V'Oimrim Kadosh V'Shoyalim Ayim Ekom Kvoida. Even the Malachim cannot comprehend, and they say Kadosh. What's Kadosh? Kadosh means he's aloof, and they say Ayim Ekom Kvoida. Like we say in the davening, that Meshars of Shalom Zela Zeh Ayem Kavod. Where is he? So he's Hashem Elokeinu, Zulus Neshamas Yisrael. Besides Jewish, the souls of a Jew, the soul of a Jew. Shenimshechu Misham, because the soul comes from that Shem Havaya. As we explained in the beginning about the Nefesh Elikis, Beli Hester Vehelim Klal, without any concealment. Chelek Hashem Amoy. It says his nation is a chelek of Havaya Yudkei Vavkei. That's beyond Echad. So the stages, Shema Yisrael, at the end you're going to reach Echad, which is already a description of God vis-a-vis the world, the way the world defines Hashem. Echad is already a description of the world. But before that is Shema Yisrael Hashem, Yudkei Vavkei Elokeinu. Not even the Malachim, because even the Malachim say, I am a Kamikvayda. The Neshama has a sensitivity, and it detects that reality because it comes from that reality. Maamer Azal, the Gemara says in Shabbos, Migila Razel Abanai. Gemara says when they said Nasav and Nishma, Hashem said, who revealed this secret to my children? Even the Malach Shobchinis Soid HaElyon. This is what we call Soid HaElyon, the higher secret. Yashas Chayshach Sisra, the Pasuk says, Yashas Chayshach Sisra, he places darkness as his hiding place, meaning Shenelam Afilu Me'enei Malachim. This is concealed even from the eyes of the Malachim. This is a Soid, it's a secret to who? A secret even to the highest spiritual beings, and yet Banai, the soul, has a sensitivity to the secret. V'hinei Shema Pirish Lashon Havana. Now the word Shema means to understand. Shema Yisrael doesn't only mean to hear, as the Mefarshim explained. The word Shema in Lashon Kodesh means to understand. Like in Yiddish, there's Heron and there's Der Heron, or the pasuk says Daber ki Shemeya Avdecha. Speak because I'm listening. What does it mean? I'm listening. I'm tuning in. I'm perceiving. Right? Like Yehuda says, "Yikonsu dvarei baznecha." You can hear, but you don't get it. So Shema is not to hear; it's to understand, to get it. So he says, "Shema is lashon havanim sheyizboin and amaskel v'yit kamachshavte b'chayz." When a thoughtful person will meditate, and he'll take his thought and he'll etch it in strongly. Yitkas from the word like litkoya yase, to take a peg and to knock it in. To take your mind and fix it strongly on this theme, that he let go of the highest and the lowest. To be Havaya Elokeinu, our God Mamish. That this Havaya Yudkei Vavkei, which even the Malachim can't grasp because they say Ayim Ekayim Kavoida. This is Elokeinu, ours. And the Neshama came down from such a lofty space, which is mamish, a piece of Hashem, to a lowly space, to become enclosed and manifested within the biological soul, within the animal soul. Thus, yeyos. Yeyos means it's roy, it's appropriate. It's appropriate, it's suitable. Shetichla, a love nafshe v'rucha, that the soul and the spirit should yearn for him, should go out for him, should seek and yearn towards him. As a yagia, lepchinis v'haftas Hashem Elokecha. So this allows a person to experience the v'hafta shu poyel oimed, which in diktuk it's called a poyel oimed. V'hafta meaning shetirtze sheyiyah havaya Elokecha. V'hafta, the word ahava comes from the word ava, desire. Love is essentially a form of desire, like Bilam says, like the pasuk says, "V'loy ava Hashem Elokecha lekal elcha," or ki avisa sehila. The word in Hebrew, avisa, ava, means desire. So v'hafta is with an extra hey. V'hafta means it's a desire. Shetirtze sheyiyah havaya Elokecha. V'hafta Hashem Elokecha means you should desire that havaya yudkei vavkei. V'hafta es havaya es Hashem Elokecha. That Hashem Yudkei Vavkei should be Elokecha, should be yours, your God. V'gam poyel yoytze, and in diktuk it's also a poyel yoytze. Shetasa ha'aval amayla. V'ahafta is you should desire, and it also creates an aval amayla. K'mashakasav ahafti eschem amar Hashem. It generates a love above. V'ahafta, you cause him to love, like the pasuk says, "I love you." Hashem says, "V'hainu shetislaiv nafshe ba'ava azah." Kirish be'ei shal heves lihibatal v'lihikolol ba'oreh deha'ava habal malmayla, meaning that his soul should become on fire with tremendous, intense love, like a fiery coal, to become submerged in his light, through the love that comes from him, through the love that comes from above him, that love creates a tremendous passion in the soul that it wants to be completely absorbed in him. As the pasuk says, Hagidali sha'ahav nafshi. Tell me the one whom I love, whom my soul loves. Hagidali sha'ahav nafshi. Umizeh ya'alav ya'agiyah lebchinas b'chol moedecha ma'oid b'li gvul v'tachlis ava shalamayla midas, which then allows a person to reach b'chol moedecha, which means ma'oid very, your veriness, which represents infinity, a love that's even behind, it's even higher than what we would call das. Okay, he's in the middle here of a long meditation, but let me just bring out one point to explain one Likkutei Torah. The Kitzer. When you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, there's two parts of the pasuk. There's the beginning and then there's the end. L'cha'ira, as the Mefarshim say, the pasuk has redundancies in it. Shema Yisrael, you could say Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. Hashem Elokeinu, the God that is our God, Hashem Echad. So three times you say Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. You could say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu Echad. Also work. So Rashi has a pshat in verse Chan Alpi pshat Shema Yisrael, that essentially every time you're saying Shema Yisrael, you're talking about Mashiach. Right? You know the Rashi in verse Chanan, yeah? It's an interesting Rashi. Rashi says Alpi pshat Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, the God that is today our God. When Mashiach comes, Hashem Echad, he will be the one God for the entire universe. So essentially, according to Rashi in Chumash, every time a Jew says Shema Yisrael, he's basically becoming mindful of the idea of the Geula, the consciousness of Geula. That Hashem, who is Elokeinu, one day is going to be, not now, but one day is Hashem Echad, as the Pasuk says, Az Epech Elamim Safa Brura, Likr Kulam B'Shem Hashem La'avdei Kulam Shechem Echad. There's going to be oneness in the whole universe. That's how Rashi says Pashat Pshat. That the pasuk is talking about the Geula, and that's the Chi of Krishma. It's an interesting thing. Here, he's going one step further, on a spiritual level. There's two Nekudas. There's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, and then there's the Nekudah of Hashem Echad. Hashem Echad is already describing Hashem vis-a-vis creation. Or to put it in a yeshiva shaloshin, Hashem Echad is a din in the Bria. It's a gather in the Bria. It's describing how the world would describe the oneness of God from its perspective. From its perspective, it exists. And therefore, how does it describe the oneness of Hashem? Aleph, Ches, Dalet, as he said, Ches, Zayin, Rikim. And it says that's what you have to have kavanah. That he's one in the universe. In other words, you look at the world, and the world is a fragmented place, and you say, no, even though it looks fragmented, the truth is it's echad. And that's one of the reasons we cover our eyes by Shema Yisrael. Why do you cover your eyes? L'cha'ira, you have to have kavanah. So at Pashtos, it's because kavanah, when you close your eyes, less distractions. But there's a deeper component in it. And that is that sometimes you acknowledge that when you open your eyes, in other words, when you look at things superficially, just with your eyes, you don't see echad. You see terrible fragmentation. One person from another person, one nation from another nation. A person himself is completely fragmented and split and full of contrasts and paradoxes. So you have to close your eyes, meaning you have to use your mind's eye rather than your physical eye. Because if you only look with fleishika eigen, with einayim psarim, then you say it's not echad. You have to go into a deeper space in order to be able to recognize in the world that it's echad. Now the challenge is that even when you take your hands off your eyes, you should still be able to see it. But that's describing God in terms of creation, in terms of existence. How existence speaks about Hashem as the battery of the world, the engine of the world, the oneness of the world. But there's something even deeper. And that's only the neshama gets. And that's Shema Yisrael. Yisrael. And like Rashi says, Hashem Echad is the whole world. Al Pi Pshat. Shema Yisrael Before we get to Echad, Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem Elokeinu is even not the world, not even the Malachim. The neshama is a chelik Elokami mal, so the neshama is sensitive. This is basically what I said yesterday. This is what he's saying. The neshama is sensitive to the reality of God that completely transcends creation. Why? Because that's where it comes from. What are the practical ramifications of this? Something very profound. And that is, I'm going to say this I'll say it briefly and succinctly. When you define Hashem, you could speak about Hashem in terms of the cosmic God or the transcendental God. The cosmic God means God in terms of the cosmos. He is the battery of the cosmos, the battery of the world. That's Echad. Hashem Elokeinu, you're not talking about the cosmic God. You're talking about the transcendent God. It's one, it's really one. But in our mind, we distinguish between the two. What do we mean transcendent? Soivav Kol Almin and beyond. It's not even Begeder Almin. He's not defined by having control over the seven heavens and the land, the earth, and Daled Ruchas Ha'olam. That's already restricted in terms of the finite energy of the world. Hashem is Eine Begeder Almin, completely beyond. That's where the soul comes from. So therefore the soul cannot even find fulfillment in living a good, meaningful life in terms of connecting to Hashem as the cosmic God, as Echad. Because the neshama is a chelik Elokamima. It's rooted in transcendence, in infinity. Even the malachim are not so sensitive like the soul. And yet this soul, which is rooted in ultimate transcendence, goes down to the lowest place where the malach can't go down. Fakert, if the malach comes down, it gets ruined. The end of Parshas Bereshis, the malachim came down, they became nephilim. They had a nephila. They became more corrupt than everybody else. Why? Because they were malachim. You take an angel and you send him to Las Vegas, what's going to happen? You take a yeshiva bach who's been in Dalet Amos of Yerushalayim, you throw him into a hot mikveh, into a cold bath. You can't do it. Only a neshama can do it. Because a neshama is higher than a malach. Because a neshama is higher than a malach, therefore the neshama could reveal the unity even in the lowest place, even in the Nefesh HaBahamas. Anybody else but a neshama would not be able to do it. A malach would fall apart completely. The neshama is rooted in a place completely transcendent, Hashem Elokeinu. Therefore the neshama could go down to the lowest place and reveal the unity over there. So for the neshama, it's insufficient to connect just to spirituality through the cosmos. That's very deep. But the neshama needs Hashem Elokeinu, the Hashem that's completely beyond the cosmos. That's where Torah and Mitzvahs comes in. As I'll continue explaining. So the neshama is a chelik Elokamimal, the Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The Hashem Elokeinu is that which the neshama detects, that which the neshama experiences, which even the malachim don't. The malachim say Ayim Ekam Kvoidoi, but the neshama Shema, the neshama senses it, the neshama experiences it, because the neshama comes from that space. Chelik Hashem Amoy, the Nefesh Elikis, is directly from Hashem without any intermediary. So therefore there's Hashem Elokeinu, that the neshama is sensitive. The neshama leptzich up in bittul. The neshama becomes alive when it melts away in the transcendent, all-pervading reality of Hashem that completely transcends the world. Anything else ultimately doesn't speak to the ultimate neshama. Your taif is this? This is very, very spiritually sensitive to talk about, such nuanced sensitivities of a soul. You would think that a soul, you say, is looking for ruchnius. He says he's not just looking for ruchnius. He's looking for the Hashem Elokeinu that's even beyond Hashem Echad. Because Hashem Echad is already defining Hashem's presence vis-a-vis the world. It's the way a spiritual man of the universe, a spiritual creature of the universe, explains God. God as the battery, the engine, as the one who grants meaning to life. But the neshama that is not satisfied with that. The neshama looks for the Hashem Elokeinu, the Hashem which is beyond Echad, beyond the Zion Rikiyim and the Eretz, beyond the Daled Ruchas Ha'olam, the Lifnei Echad Ma to Sofer, to get beyond echad. There's something higher than echad, because echad is ultimately a description of Hashem in terms of the universe. Well, if nei echad ma'ata sefer, it's beyond the story. It's not begeder alm, and this is where the neshama ultimately comes to life. It's its ultimate identity, because that's what a neshama is. A neshama is essentially made up of that transcendent reality. V'zeu sha'amar, this is the meaning of the pasuk. You see, v'zeu sha'amar. It's Lamed Ches, column 2. Column 2. Or 75 if you wish. You don't see it? The line starts, Ma'oid bli gvul v'tachlis. I don't know, it's like maybe 15, 20 lines from the top. You see Ma'oid bli gvul v'tachlis. V'zeu sha'amar, this is the meaning of a pasuk in Iyov. The pasuk says in Iyov, Perik Yud Beis, Megala Amukois, Mini Chayshech, V'yoytzi La'er Tzalmavas. He reveals depths. There's a sefer Megala Amukas taken from this pasuk. Iyov Perik Yud Beis. Megala Amukois Mini Chayshech. He reveals depths from amidst the darkness. V'yoytzi la'or tzalmavas, and brings to light the shadow of death. So it's very poetic words in Iyov, but he touches here his explanation from a spiritual perspective. Pirush, Shayidei shemegala b'liboy amukos mini choshech, by the person revealing in his heart amukos depths from the darkness, meaning b'chinas havaya lekeinu b'chinas yoshes choshech sisroi. He excavates the b'china of Havaya Lekena, which we call darkness. And the reason we call darkness is not because it's lower than light, because it's higher than light, because it's concealed even from the eyes of the angels. It's the b'china of when the pasuk says Yoshes Choshech Sisra, like it says in Tehillim, Perik Yud Ches, that his hiding place is Choshech. In other words, it's a darkness that's beyond light because it's not seen, it's not experienced by creation. So when a Jew reveals that oimek in his heart, memela nishapech hashaychel l'nahira. So the darkness, the other type of darkness, is transformed into light. V'yoytzi la'or tzalmavas b'chinas harasha b'nafshi shenepach l'toif. V'yoytzi la'or, the ra comes to light. The ra gets transformed into toif. This realization of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, is the roimach. It's the spear that not only distinguishes between the Tov and the Ra, but actually transforms it. It eliminates it by transformation. V'hinei b'doides harishonim, in the first generation, shaloi haya hara goyver behem kol kach, where the Ra was not as powerful and mixed in, haya dailem levatl ra shalem mikol v'kol b'kriyah shma levadoi. They had only Kriyas Shema, and that was enough to be mevatel the Ra. Loi kein ata beikvis meshicha. But Doris Arishonim, there was only Kriyas Shema. Meaning, when he says Doris Arishonim, here he means before the Anshe Knesset Agdola. So what did the morning davening consist of? There was no davening. What was davening like in the desert? What was davening like during the whole first Beis HaMikdash? Till the second Beis HaMikdash, when the Anshe Knesset Agdola instituted the Nusach of Shemoneh Esrei that we have, the Nusach HaTfilah, 3 times a day. They gave it 3 times, twice or 3 times, 3 times a day, Shachs Mincha Ma'ariv and Shemoneh Esrei, and they made all the brachas. But before that, there were no brachas. So Krishma was always a mitzvah. So basically, a Jew woke up in the morning and he said Shema. He said, and even if he davened, because Tfilah is a mitzvah saseh min HaTorah, at least according to many poskim, Shittas HaRambam, at least, what is it? Not the Nusach of Tfilah. Huh? Yeah, in another Maamer, in Chukas. But he could daven for 10 seconds. He could daven for 10 hours, but he could daven for 20 seconds. You daven what you wanted. So he says, B'doros HaRishonim, Krishma was enough. Loikin ata b'ikvis Mashiach. But not like that today, b'ikvis Mashiach, meaning in the heels of Mashiach, as the generations progress further and further throughout history. Shaharam is gaber ma'oid, that there is brokenness that becomes very strong. Who built the F Shalavatla Mikol V'Kol B'Kriyas Shema Levada. Kriyas Shema on its own will not do the bittul, therefore Lazois Tiknu Shemoneh Esrei Brachas. Therefore the Chazal, the Anshe Knesset Agdola, were masakin 18 blessings to be said after Kriyas Shema in the morning. U'Baruch Hu Lashon Hashpa V'Hamshacha. The word Baruch, which repeats itself 18 times in Shemona Esrei, or today actually 19 times because we have 19 brachas. The word Baruch means blessed, but really the source of the word Baruch is in Mishnayos. There's an expression, Hamavrech es hagefen. If you graft a vineyard, grafting, meaning you take, say, a branch of a tree, and you graft it, you pull it, and you draw it into another location in the earth. In modern Hebrew, we have something, not only modern, it's called a brecha. How do you say a pool? Brecha is a pool. Why? Basically, it pulls water in from the source, whether it's a river, a lake, a wellspring, a faucet, but it gathers the water together. So when it says Baruch, Baruch actually means not blessed. Baruch means to draw forth, to bring down, to create a flow. That's what Baruch is. Baruch is Lashon Hamshach. So when we say Baruch At, it's Lashon Hashpah v'Hamshach. It's a flow and a drawing forth, communication. Shana Mavakshim, we're asking Sheyumshach v'Yushpa. B'chinas Ata l'noichach Havaya lekenu. Sheyiyah Banu b'izgalus lebeinu. So you're asking Baruch Ata Hashem, that the Ata should come down and become Hashem. So Baruch Ata Hashem Magen Avraham, Baruch Ata Hashem Makela Kadosh, or all the brachas, Chaynin Hadas, etc. Reitz B'Shuva. It's all Baruch Ata Hashem. Baruch, that's what he says. Baruch is Lashon Hashpah, that you're asking that the Ata should be able to come down in a way that I could speak about it l'noichach. Noichach means second person. Somebody in front of me, I say you, not he. Who is third person. Ata is second person. So when I say Ata, it's something that's fully present. So he's saying Baruch, Ata, Hashem, that the Yudke Vavke should be brought down, that it should become Ata, something that I could say you. In other words, it's immediate, it's imminent, it's intimate. Sheyiyabanu b'hizgalus lebeinu, it should be in us, it should be Ata, you. In other words, it should be revealed in my heart. And thus the Ra will be nullified like the nullification of darkness in the presence of light. When you come to the bracha of Slach Lanu ki chatanu, ein pirushim mipnei yiras ha'oinish, sheyislach lanu b'shvil shelo yanash esanu chas v'shalom. The Slach Lanu Avinu ki chatanu doesn't mean that he's afraid of punishment. You should forgive me because I don't want you should punish me. That's the Vart. That's not what he's asking for. Ach pirushay k'mashal adam hamavakesh mechavei mechilo slicha sheyizgaler ritzoynei elav ayideis eirus rachmanusay. It's like a person asking from his friend forgiveness because he wants to be close to him. He wants that the same desire and passion he had for him before should not be ruined by what he did. That's what Slach Lanu Avinu ki chatanu mechalanu malkeinu ki fashanu. In other words, there's two ways of teaching the bracha.
Same thing. Not to.
No, it's from one extreme to another extreme. I'll explain to you the difference. What is yira? What is yira? When you say fear, what is yiras Hashem? What does it mean, yiras Hashem? Your fear of Hashem. What do you fear? How do you touch?
Fear was a bad word.
Huh?
Fear didn't work.
Right. So, in other words, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of your? Well, I don't know. I was thinking of asking, are you afraid of your mother? Are you afraid of your father? Are you afraid of your wife? And then I realized, yeah, a lot of people are very afraid of their wife and their father, their mother. Now, what are you afraid of? You know, in school, right? You were afraid to be sent to the principal's office. Why were you afraid? What were you afraid of? You were afraid of because he's tough, right? And he may not have your back, and he won't forego anything, and he won't forgive, and he's going to punish you or expel you or penalize you. Generally, what am I afraid of? Right? I'm afraid to go into this conversation. I'm afraid to tell my boss. I'm afraid to tell my wife. Why? What are you afraid of? You're afraid of the consequences. Why should you be afraid? You're not afraid to tell yourself. You're afraid to tell somebody who may respond to it very differently than you. But in this space, where there's complete oneness, that's his question, what's the fear? So some people, that's what they think of Hashem as well. Be afraid because he doesn't have your back. He's actually looking down your back and trying to see what the mistakes are. And he's going to see the mistakes, and he's not going to forgive, and he's going to get you back for them. So therefore you're afraid. You have what to be afraid of, and you have who to be afraid of. He has the power, and he's not interested in doing anything else but, exacting payment for what is owed to him. So that's one type of yira. That's what we call yiras ha'einish. I'm afraid of punishment. So when I come to him and I say, Slach lonu avinu ki chatonu mechalonu malkeinu ki fashanu, what am I saying? Please, I know I did something wrong, but I'm turning to your kindness and I'm saying you could forgive me and not punish me. I'm afraid you're going to punish me, so please forgive me for what I did and cleanse it, and let's start over again. Let's turn a new page and start over this relationship. That's one type of yira. This is what's called yira sa'einish, that shaloyanish esanu chas v'shalom. I don't want to be punished. So I come to you and I say, okay, I did this and this, ashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu, please forgive me, and let's call it quits. That's one oif. But he's saying the emes is that in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you're already after davening where there is a type of unity, that this type of yira actually is not what the core of the relationship is. So what is the yira? What is the yira? He says it's like when you have a friend, and what you want is yizgaler ritzoynei elav. To put it maybe in these words, the yira is coming, I'm afraid to ruin such a beautiful relationship. The relationship is so precious, I don't want to ruin it. That's the nekuda. I know that you love me, and you love me unconditionally, and you have my back maybe even more, not maybe, you have my back more than I have my back. And you're not judging me and denigrate me, and I'm afraid of what you're going to say and what you're going to do to me. You know what I'm bothered by? I'm bothered by that such a beautiful relationship has been ruined, has been affected, has been destroyed. And I want to build it up. I want that the ratzon that we have to each other, the will, the passion that we have to each other, should remain completely intact, even though there's room to call it quits and to sever the relationship. So what am I afraid? I'm afraid of ruining such a precious bond. You have such a close friend, and you're so close, you're going to allow this to get in the way. That's what I'm afraid of. Not because you're bad, or you're impulsive, or you're not going to care for me, or you're going to try to get me back, or vengeance. There's something much deeper. What I'm afraid is, I'm afraid that you're going to forgive me. That's what I'm afraid of. The opposite. I'm afraid that you're going to forgive me, and you're going to say, okay, I forgive you, now get out of my life. That's what I'm afraid of. In other words, that you're going to detach from me. You're going to say, okay, I forgive you. There was a Jew, his name was Simon Wiesenthal. From the he made the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Hunting Nazis. He passed away a few years ago. Shimon Wiesenthal. So I once read, he told a story that when he was in the DP camps after liberation, after he came out of the death camps, so he was in one of the DP camps, and he got some money. There was a Jew who asked him if he could borrow from him $10, which was a very nice sum of money then, people who had nothing. And he said that he's supposed to get a package in a week from the U.S., and he's going to get the money, he's going to pay him back. He gave him the $10. A week later, he didn't get it back. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month, 2 months. And the Jew always had excuses. Tomorrow, after tomorrow, before Shalosh Shudas, after Shalosh Shudas, almost got it. It came, it almost came, it went back. You know, it's called Jewish excuses. Around a year later, the Jew comes over to him and he says that he's leaving a few days to America, and here's the money. He gives him back the money. So Simon Wiesenthal tells him, I'm not taking the money. He says, why? He says, $10 is not worth me changing my opinion of you. I'm not going to say that Simon Wiesenthal was right, but the word I like. You know what I mean? Sometimes forgiveness, that's what I'm afraid of. Fine, take the money. I know who you are. I'm not even going to take your money. I don't want this to be. So this pshat is punk farket. Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Don't just forgive me, so you're not going to punish me. I want the relationship should be the same relationship. Sometimes two friends are best friends and then somebody does something. He forgives him, but it's never the same. The trust is not there. The trust has been breached. So the slach lanu avinu ki chatanu is that the neshama is mamash achelek elakami mal. The dveikus of a soul with Hashem is the deepest type of dveikus possible. And it's a type of dveikus that transcends all of the world. It's a dveikus with Hashem's essence. Lifnei echad, higher than Hashem echad. This is Hashem Elokeinu. It's almost our secret. It's our God. It's Hashem Elokeinu. It's beyond Hashem echad. Not because the world is not a good place, but because the world can only capture the divinity that flows through the universe. It can't capture Hashem Elokeinu. And that's what the Jew experiences by Shema. So when the Ra was less entrenched, that was enough to have a spear and to be mevatel the Ra of the Nefesh HaBahamis, to transform it. Megala amukos mini choshech. You megala that oimek from yourself, v'yotzi l'oretz al-mavis. The Ra ultimately becomes transformed. Today there's a need for more in davening, including Shmoneh Esrei Baruch Atah Hashem, where the Hashem becomes Ata you. Even the Slach Lanu, why does he chap on Slach Lanu? Because here you may look at a bracha that seems like there's a distance. Forgive me because I sinned. He says, no, what you're looking for is Slach Lanu Avinu Chadon. I'm not afraid that you're going to punish me, and now you're not going to punish me. Now, have a good day, I'm off the hook. You know, the principal said, okay, I'm not going to punish you, I'm off the hook. No, I don't want to be off the hook. I want to always be connected. So what I want is that the rotzen should not be concealed from me. The passion should not be concealed. That's what he says. By sinning, you
connected.
You don't want to ruin such a beautiful relationship. It's too.
How do you ruin it?
How do you ruin it? You ruin it by betraying the relationship, by violating the relationship. You know, there was a certain trust. There's a certain trust. You violate the relationship.
Are you saying that the fear?
Yeah.
But is it the same?
Yeah.
as
In other words, the
marriage?
relationship. You're right. The relationship is unconditional. It's going to remain intact. But I won't be able to feel it and breathe it. It won't be the same. The relationship will always be there. That I cannot tarnish. The neshama is not going to become not a chelek elikami ma. But I won't be able to breathe it. I won't be able to feel it. And that's why sensitive people, they're sensitive to dvarim hasurim, not because of einish, not because of a barbecue they're going to burn in. It was much deeper than that. Much more. It was much less selfish. The person says he's not going to betray his spouse because she might catch him. And the consequences will be dire. Okay, I guess it's better than sinning. Any calculation that's holding you back from wrong behavior is good. Even if you believe that the turtle is going to catch you. If it's holding you back from sin, zol zayin. It's brought in Sifrei Musar that lishma is by mitzvahs, not by avedas. In other words, even if you're stopping an aveda because shaloi lishma, zol zayin azoi. Whatever the reason, you're not eating the poison, you're not eating it is good. You have crazy cheshbonos. But everybody understands that the marriage needs a little help. The relationship is so precious that how could I do it? I'm embarrassed of doing it. Let's say she doesn't catch me. Let's say nobody catches me. So, okay, God is going to catch you, right? Somebody's there, the FBI, Google will catch you. Google is there anyway. You can't go away from Google. It's Einoid Mulvadam. Or at least in their mission statement, right? So Google. Listen, it's better than nothing. Yiras Einish is a good thing if it's going to stop you from getting into a mess. So but there's something much deeper. I can't break such a beautiful relationship. Even if she doesn't find out. It's too precious to me to violate. It's too deep. It's too powerful. It's too real. I'm not going to betray you. That's what I'm afraid of. That's not selfish. That's very subtle. It's sensitive. It's transcendent. He says, that's the slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. I want to be ata. I should always be able to be with you. And if that doesn't happen, so let's take, for example, lying, right? There's people who are naturally inclined to lie. They always do it. And let's face it, in certain societies, it's almost better than saying the truth. People grow up almost without thinking you lie. You have to think if you should say the truth. So people know you're not supposed to lie. But then there's other types of lies. White lies, small lies, and so forth. So when a person knows about this achdus, they stay away from all of these things very far. Why? It's not because somebody will catch you. So white lies, people don't catch you because everyone knows everyone is lying. It's not like a big deal. Why are you late? Oh, I'm not feeling well. Shine. Why didn't you come yesterday? I had to run somewhere. I'm stuck in traffic. Whatever. Traffic is always a good excuse for shay construction, right? You can always say 45 minutes on for shay. And sometimes you'll be right. But the vart is when somebody is cognizant of the achdus that they have, the neshama has with the chelik elakam imal, even slight subtle betrayals become very, very painful for them. Because even a little distortion of morality or Torah, what it does is you can't look God in the eyes anymore. When you betray me, you can't look me in the eyes anymore. And you know it. Nobody else knows it. You know it and I know it. I forgave you, but that's the problem. I forgave you, that's the problem. I forgave you, but ultimately it's not the same. I forgave you. So that's what he's asking. I wanted to be able to be Baruch Atah Hashem. You should always be able to look the Rebbeinu Shalom in the eyes. I mean metaphorically speaking, of course. You should be able to always have that clarity, that transparency, that we're completely intimate. There's no secrets. There's no betrayal whatsoever. Why? Because I'm completely one with myself. I'm completely at peace with myself. That's a different type of yira. That's a yira, not because you're going to punish me. Even if I know you're not going to punish me. I'm not looking to get over the hook. You should forgive me. What I'm looking for is that the relationship should remain as intact and as strong as ever.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.